Start us off, Carter.
And welcome back to the Ken Burns Bunch. Carter here.
And I'm not Ken Burns.
Yes, we are a podcast dedicated to creating the physical sensation of being in a Ken Burns documentary. As many of you know, Ken Burns is famous for using those very slow zoom ins and outs. And we have created two podcasting setups that perfectly recreate that. Will it give us a better appreciation for cinematic technique? Will it cause me to throw up because I get very prone to vertigo and motion sickness? Will it help? Answer was I did throw up. But anyway, it's actually Carter and Kevin Explains Football. I'm Carter.
And I didn't throw up.
Yeah, this season is drunk as hell,
Oh my
Kevin.
god.
Even into week 2, we need to get. I'm taking the keys away. No, we can't. We cannot have this. They can't get in the car. Give me the keys, NFL. This is
Have
ridiculous.
Have you watched? Do you watch Tom Grassi at all?
I've seen some of his stuff, but I do not watch him regularly.
So one of his weekly bits throughout the season is he does like the behind the scenes with the NFL scriptwriter, and
Oh
the
yes,
NFL
yes.
scriptwriter was drunk in this one.
Yeah, I'd say it's getting. This season has gone off the rails at a shocking speed. Between high-profile losses, a lot of very good teams are 1-1 or 0-2.
Yeah.
Between injuries out the wazoo, basically, if you have a fantasy team, you're probably unhappy with it now.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
to general malarkey and nonsense, scoring is down record lows, passing is at record lows, kicking is up. All hell is cats and dogs making business deals together. Dogmen running through the streets. It's middle school prom chaos right now, guys.
It's There's some insanity going on. I don't know how to feel anymore about anything.
Like objectively, my team probably had, well, other than the Saints and the Cardinals, had the best showing, and I just feel kind of numb about it because I was bewildered the entire time. I was like, this isn't what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, it's I don't know what the hell is going on if I'm being honest. Like fantasy
I mean, I have
wise, real
conspiracy
football
theories.
wise, everything is just Hulu.
I mean, I was listening to a very interesting segment about just sort of how analytics has changed the sport. And it does feel like kind of a confluence of like three or four major things all crashing into each other headfirst at full speed. Part of it is we're rushing rookie quarterbacks out too soon. We're rushing young quarterbacks out too soon because of the contract thing of
Yeah.
like, you really need a guy on that rookie contract. So why would you spend money on a Jimmy Garoppolo or like a EJ Manuel level guy if you could have a Brock Purdy?
Yeah,
Um,
it's weird. Like y last year's draft class has perfect opposites of like that of CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Like
hmm.
let's see, they could not have any different like reactions in the league, I guess is the way I'm going to say it.
Yes, which we will get to the big news on that end. Um, but yes, you're rushing these guys out there. You know, they haven't really developed because it's like the college game is so different from the professional game now, where so much of the college game is like uncritical, like sling it around the yard, play street ball.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the NFL, you're making about 40 different decisions in the 40 seconds from snap to snap.
Yeah.
It's combined with offensive linemen aren't getting more athletic, but defense is. The bend don't break defense has forced everyone to be check down artists, which, as we established, quarterbacks aren't really learning how to do anymore. And also, like, kickers are suddenly superhumans now. We're in the age of the bionic kicker. So all these things
Yes.
are kind of coming
Yes,
to a
they are.
head to create absolute anarchy on Earth. All hell is breaking loose. Um, shall we kick it off with our highlights?
Sure. First things first. I believe he was the number one rookie wide receiver all season, or drafted because there's only one spot to
Yes.
be number one. Um, Marvin Harrison Jr. What
Yes.
a fucking
Basically his coming
performance.
out. Yes. Basically his like debutante ball after a slow start where he only caught one pass and then almost got a Hail Mary at the end of the Bills Cardinals game. He basically listened to a week of criticism, a week of hand wringing, a week of, oh, he's so slow, and like maybe they should have drafted Malik Neighbors, and like, basically all the same stuff we were saying during the draft process when everyone was bored with him and being like, are we sure he's great? And went, bet. Basically, off the start, he took the entire Rams defense into a locker and shoved them into it. Game starts off with a 23-yard touchdown pass from him. Beautiful, dragging his toes before the ball is even within arm's reach. A 60-yard bomb where he simply outruns everyone. And then basically his day was done. He could have actually had 2 more touchdowns, but the passes were slightly off.
Yeah.
Only 4 catches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. One of the best performances of the year so far.
What an insane performance.
Truly. And especially because it was basically all the first quarter. That game was surreal to watch, especially as someone who is very excited for the Rams' prospects this season. They get the ball to start, try to go for it on 4th and 1 at about midfield, fail, and then the Cardinals kind of just beat the ever-loving snot out of them. I believe it was 21-0 before the Rams were even able to get a pity field goal.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yes, this was kind of proof concept of everything we wanted to. Like, all the hype of the Cardinals being like an exciting team this year was built on like, well, now they got the guy, and this is what the guy does. He just kind of embarrasses another team.
Yeah, this was literally the definition of like the Cardinals being the best worst team, where it's just like they were like 1 or 2 pieces away from being scary,
an actual good team,
and that's kind of how they were.
Right. It's actually, I don't know. Like, I feel, again, we talked about this before. I feel a little bad for Kyler Murray at times because I feel like he's gotten kind of a raw deal for a lot of his professional career. But, like, he looks so, like, again, it's not just that he's scoring a lot. He just looks so much more professional than he did in his first couple years, where it's like the explosion is still there post-knee injury, but now he is so much better at, like, sort of moving around in the pocket, finding space to get a throw off, and also just clearly reading the defense and going through his progressions. Honestly, like, all of the, it's so nice for once to have like this team has so much potential team actually deliver on it. And yeah, again, as someone who is like hardcore on Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm like, guys, let's not overthink this. Let's not overthink this. This is why you don't overthink it, because he just provides this like Mario Kart superstar or golden mushroom element to all of this. Although I'd be remiss to say, man, that Rams defense, in particular, poor Trey White, former Buffalo Bill who tore his ACL and his Achilles over the last 2 years. Man, he was getting smoked alive like brisket out there against Marvin Harrison Jr. It was bad. Like, we'll have a segment later where we talk about the 0-2 and 2-0 teams, but I'm like, I am out on the Rams this year. That was jarring.
I feel like I'm still not out on them. They kind of put up fights. They kind of do.
I guess, but man, that was an alarming showing on top of the injuries building up. But from the high-flying passing, because thank God someone brought the air raid to this week, because otherwise this was a week of running backs are back, baby. This was a running back delight this week. Just to name a few, the Saints simply ran clean through. Alvin Kamara ended up having 115 yards and 3 touchdowns. Another one, Devin Singletary somehow managed to have 95 yards. The Chargers, J.K. Dobbins, I think, had 2 touchdowns. J.K. Dobbins, who wasn't able to climb a flight of stairs last year, is stunting on people. The specific performance I wanted to draw attention to is the Green Bay Packers-Colts game, and I should have known. Everyone was hard betting on the Colts. Like, Malik Willis isn't a real quarterback. This game will be a breeze. Don't even worry about it, yo. And of course, they run basically the exact perfect strategy you need to win when you don't trust your quarterback 100%. Josh Jacobs, 32 carries, 151 yards. They threw the ball 14 times. Like, if you were to ask me, how do the Packers beat the Colts? I'm like, well, they just run it down their throats, get a lead, and take advantage of the fact that Anthony Richardson sometimes can't hit the ocean. And again, as someone who constantly was like downplaying Aaron Rodgers' sort of resurgence, this game really affirmed to me that, hey, those were Matt LaFleur's MVPs, buddy.
Yeah.
Truly a masterclass in designing a run game, because it wasn't just that they were running it down their throats. They were doing end arounds. They were doing like pistol shotgun stuff. They were doing wing T. They were doing all kinds of weird little elaborate plans to basically get the ball into talented players' hands and just kind of control the entire pace of the game. And while I still like the Colts, this was a very good example of like, their young coach, and he, former Eagles guy, we like him, but it really was like as you become more professional as a coach, you need to be able to grab everyone by the jersey and be like, there's only one way they're beating us. We are not going to let them beat us this way.
Yeah.
And then, except that's not what happened this time around.
Yeah. I think that sums it up pretty good.
On a similar note, as we mentioned with the Saints, God damn it. Are the Saints good?
I don't know. Here's the thing.
I don't know either. That's the problem.
I can't tell. And it is baffling to me.
Right? Because, like, the first game you can throw at, that's the Panthers. That doesn't count.
You're playing the Panthers. Whatever.
Yeah.
They scored, 47 to the Panthers 10. Week 2. They're against the Cowboys. America's team. The team that everyone keeps saying is going to be a Super Bowl contender. 44-19, the Saints win.
A trouncing.
They made them look stupid. Like, Alvin Kamara got 5 touchdowns?
Yes.
Something sort of like that?
Yes. Alvin Kamara ended up having 3 touchdowns on the ground, and I believe he also had a pass one. Rashid Shaheed is apparently just the deep ball expert now. Yeah. He had a 70-yard pass from Derek Carr.
Dude's been collecting points on my bench for 2 weeks.
Right. Because he gets the ball 2 times, but one of them happens to be a 70-yard bomb.
Yeah.
Derek Carr, maybe one of, he is, I've always joked about how, AJ Green is going to be the guy who you and me, when we're in, our retirement homes and our grandkids are I don't get it. We grab them by the scruff of their collar and you don't understand. They were so good. They just won bad teams. Derek Carr is the reverse of that, where I'm no, the numbers don't tell the story. It's actually kind of bad. He was adverse to physical contact, so we always threw the ball away. But Derek Carr, 11 of 16 for 243 yards, 15 yards a throw. His quarterback rating was 99.4. And I genuinely don't know if they're good or not, because it's on one hand, this is a classic Cowboys game of if a team can run on them, the whole thing falls apart. They're very much a paper tiger defense. But also, again, we've seen this with Derek Carr, where it's if he can do the things he likes, then he's pretty good. But the minute you get him away from the things he likes, he kind of curls up into a ball. Every single pass was either a deep shot or a slant or a play action deep shot. But at the same time, I'm but if the results are the results, do we have to just trust the results?
Yeah. And it's on paper, technically this season so far, the Saints are good. They have scored...
legally.
Yeah, they have scored 91 points.
Yes, they are basically the best offense in the league.
Yes. The next closest is the Cardinals with 69 points. And the amount of points scored against the Saints, 29.
Yes.
That's kind of absurd.
Again, this was the year it was all supposed to cave in. They finally had to shed talent on defense. Their offensive line finally shed talent. This was supposed to be the year that the whole thing fell apart. But I'm pulling up the coordinator. Apparently Clint Kubiak is an actual genius, because the vibes are just night and day. Last year, they all hated each other.
Oh,
last year, Michael Thomas was actively tweeting insults at Derek Carr from the fucking bench.
Yeah.
And yet now, this one guy comes in who was a quarterbacks and off I guess he was a good offensive coordinator in Minnesota, but he also had Justin Jefferson. I didn't think he was this good. like, and looking over their schedule, I'm trying to figure out what like the next real test is. I mean, honestly, going through it right now. So they play the Eagles next week, which we'll get to the Eagles, and then the Falcons. I really do think October is when we'll know or not, because they have to play the Chiefs and the Bucks back to back.
Yeah.
Who have been the other surprising good team. I think it's not until then where we'll actually know, like, are they a serious team, or is this just, like, you're surprising people early?
As the team that is playing the Saints in Week 3, I'm terrified.
I would be terrified, too. I'm glad we're dodging the NFC South this year. I'm tired of dealing with that. I'm
legitimately terrified of what could happen. Not what will happen, what could happen.
Right. Yes, it weirdly feels like what direction is your season going to take for both teams?
Mm-hmm.
On a similar note, oh god damn it, a second time. Are the Bucks also good? Or as I call it, the Sam Darnold Baker Mayfield Magical Mystery Redemption Tour.
I don't think Tampa is. I would not consider Tampa good. They played the Commanders, which honestly isn't saying much.
Right. Yeah.
And
I feel like between the two, I would probably say the Saints are the actual good team.
Yeah. They like beat out the Lions, but I feel like that's just a little bit of smart like time management stuff as opposed to.
Yes, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the Detroit Lions 20-16. Great year, actually awful year. Although Moana did come out, so you take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of a mixed game. I really do think it's more on the Lions just kind of underperforming.
It wasn't. I think it was a little bit more of the Lions lost as opposed to the Buccaneers won.
Right, because Jared Goff had a weird. Yeah, that's a good description. Because Jared Goff had a very weak game. He threw 2 back-breaking interceptions late in the game. He was like kind of under duress for he was just kind of getting uncomfortable in the pocket a lot. They were able to run. They were able to move around. Amon-Ra got an injury. Aiden Hutchinson ended up having 4.5 sacks. I believe he was 1 short of the Lions' record.
Lions' record was 5.5.
Yes, he ended up being 1 short.
Yeah. I think it was 5, and he needed 5.5 to make it. He was very close.
Yeah. But yeah, when you look over it, and that, it was a game that was on a lot. It really did feel like we are going to take advantage of the Lions' miscues and not do anything particularly risky. Because here's the thing, the Lions had 2 pretty long drives with a chance to take the lead, and they just weren't able to do it. Their final 3 drives were shockingly bad interception, turnover on downs after going 76 yards, and another turnover on downs after going a little bit. I think it would be fun for the NFL if the Buccaneers are good. Again, they have a certain energy that we don't have with other teams.
They're the frat boys.
Right. But I don't necessarily believe in them yet.
Yeah. They haven't sold me on them.
Yes. Would you like to share your don't sleep on game results?
Yes. Probably the oddest choice of a don't sleep on game of all the games this week, because there was a lot of football. I'll say that. I won't say how quality it was.
Yeah.
There's a lot of football. But
one of my notes that I didn't put on yet is 10 games in the 1 o'clock slot is too many. We've lost. I know people like the 1 o'clock slot because it's you get done by dinner time and then you can cruise until the night game. But no, this was ridiculous.
I fully agree. I was watching Red Zone during that time, and
they bring out the Deca box.
It was like Kevin Dunn was back producing for WWE, where he's switching cameras every 2 seconds, and it's did see the Deca box. It made an appearance.
Right. I'm genuinely having a panic attack trying to keep track of what is happening in any of these games.
I think the best amount of games for a window is 4 to 5, where you will see a decent bit of action and you can focus on that. And I know that's kind of impossible with some of the 1 o'clock time slot.
Yeah,
but
because I think what did we have 4 games in the? It has to be as close to even as possible.
Yeah, there's 4 games in the 3 o'clock or the 4 o'clock shot, but it was 10 games is just an absurd amount. It's cutting every 3 seconds. Your phone's blowing up every other minute, whether it's fantasy, whether it's your team, whatever. And then they brought it down to 3 games at the 4 o'clock, and it was so much more manageable. There was a lot more actually watching the games on Red Zone as opposed to here's this happening. I don't think I saw a single hint of some games at the 1 o'clock window. I genuinely can't tell you how much I saw of the Chargers-Panthers game because it wasn't.
They didn't even bother showing it.
Yeah.
I barely saw the Seahawks-Patriots game, despite it being a pretty entertaining game.
Yeah. Very little of the Raiders-Ravens game, too. The most it was shown was when it was, the last game to finish. So that's the most it was shown. And it was just insane. But anyway, the Don't Sleep On game for this week of a lot of football, I picked the New York Giants versus the Washington Commanders.
Yes, 2 teams that learned a fascinating lesson in field goals win games.
Yes, well, there's that. The Washington Commanders exclusively scored field goals, specifically 7 of them, to get 21 points.
Yes. I just want to list off their drives to give you a sense of how stupid this game was. The Washington Commanders, field goal, kneel down at the half, field goal, win game. Meanwhile, the New York Football Giants, truly a masterclass in incompetent franchise running, did manage to score 3 touchdowns. But if you look, you're like, how does 3 touchdowns equal 18 points? Well, let me tell you. So going into this game, their kicker was suffering, I believe, from an ankle injury. Brian Daboll decided, he'll probably be fine.
Nope.
And on literally the opening kickoff, attempting to prevent Austin Eckler from taking it 98 yards to the house, it ended up getting called back anyway. Their kicker pulls his hamstring. So they play the entire game without a kicker, meaning every time they score a touchdown, they need to attempt a 2-point conversion. They did not get a single one.
Yeah.
So, as a result, they were unable to win the game. They had a final drive to take the lead when it was 18-18. Malik Neighbors, who unfortunately I feel bad for because he was actually really good in this game, ended up dropping a critical pass, making a turnover on downs. Mm-hmm. And Jalen Daniels was able to march the team downfield just far enough to kick the field goal. It is just very funny to me that Giants fans are doing a loop-de-loop, and we'll talk about it when we talk about lowlights, but they are celebrating the fact that Devin Singletary did slightly better than Saquon Barkley this week, despite losing a game in which the other team only kicked field goals exclusively because you did not bring a fucking kicker to the game. You did not stop. I thought at least Brian Daboll would be safe after all of this. I thought, you know what? He is, he's proven himself. He's made a lot out of a little. Daniel Jones at least looks baseline competent more often than not. I thought he'd be able to save his job and get to pick the next quarterback. Now I think the whole house is getting cleaned out because that is humiliating.
I think that we are going to have a brand new Giants next year.
True, yeah, it is we're talking top-down purge here, guys.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a full clean house.
Yes. I would probably agree with that.
Unless if they pull a ass half of the season turnaround. But
yes.
they have to
sure doesn't look that way.
They have to make it to that point.
Yes. I was going to pick that as my don't sleep on game, but I think I am just going to go with Seahawks and Patriots because I'm actually kind of thrown off by how competent the Patriots have looked.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. It was.
Yes.
It went into overtime, won by a field goal.
Yeah.
And it was
yes.
Kind of fun.
Again, the Patriots realized they have basically 3 things going for them. They can run it to the right. The right side of their offensive line is competent enough to run it to the right. And They can throw a lot of short passes. Hunter Henry, someone described it perfectly. As a tight end, he's one of those guys where it's like, if he was just in a good situation where they fed him the ball, people would be like, this guy's great. He's a Pro Bowler. But he's never had that situation. So people are like, never figured it out. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, Geno Smith continues to just look like, again, we talk about like the baseline of quarterbacking plummeting because it's all young guys and then the elite of the elite. Geno Smith, again, is like, there should be a dozen Geno Smiths. A guy who can competently run an offense that does pretty well and ends up doing just enough for your team to get the win. I would say the offense looks incredibly competent, not incompetent. I really appreciate that Jackson Smith is now getting a huge chunk of the workload.
Yes.
I like that they can win games without running, which was always a problem during the Pete Carroll era, where if they couldn't run the ball, the whole thing was over. And I'm going to be honest, like, I've actually started to sit down with the Patriots and figure out, like, if they could just throw a couple deep passes, they probably could, actually could be feisty on the back half of the year. And I was trying to figure out when you put Drake May in. Because now I'm like, okay, Jacoby Brissett isn't dying, so you probably can justify putting Drake May in. And ultimately, I think the next two games for them are the big tests of the New York Jets and the San Francisco 49ers. Those are probably the two most ferocious defenses they're going to face for the rest of the year. Like, if you can at least keep Jacoby Brissett upright for those two games, you probably can put him in after that, which would mean he would make his debut against the Texans.
Yeah. I think that's like one of those like bold choice moments of when you put him in, because he's not bad. Like he was like obviously good enough to be an early draft pick.
Right. It's more just you don't want him to get the ever-loving snot kicked out of him, and then learn all of the worst habits.
Yeah. You gotta there's gotta be a right point to put someone in, and it's trying to find that niche of a spot where it's just like you don't have a freaking blown first game.
Right. Again, like, we talk about like the debate about nature versus nurture with players is so discussed, but like. With quarterbacks, and we'll talk about a certain quarterback whose career probably looks kind of over.
Yeah.
That is the one place where it's most visible, because it's like you're asking someone to do kind of the there's only 32 of these jobs where they're asking you to do the impossible. Like, if you mess with this guy's head too soon, his brain's just going to get fried. Yeah, but again, I'm excited to see where the Seahawks go. Like, they've won two kind of tight, scrappy games, but that's, they look competent. Now that the Rams look really wounded, there's suddenly an opening in the division race that they might be able to jump through. Shall we talk about lowlights real quick?
Yeah. The fall of the Juggernauts.
Yes. What I mean when we say this week was drunk as hell.
Yes. So, all right. I guess let's talk about the Juggernaut successes real quick.
Okay, yeah.
All right, ready?
The act like you've been here teams. Yeah. Yes.
Bills winning on Thursday Night Football. A lot of stuff happened to the Dolphins, so if the Bills blew that, it would have been a problem, but they didn't blow it.
Yes. Yeah, they kind of just said, we're going to run it down your throat, and they didn't really have a meaningful answer.
Yep. Texans beating the Bears. Houston Texans are definitely up-and-coming juggernaut.
Right.
No one can deny that. And they just kept the Bears just far down enough that no one really was worried. And with
the Bears defense is sneaky good, and you were able to consistently move the ball and get just enough points.
Get just enough points where I would say they were never worried. And it was a very long third quarter too, so to be able to keep it out through that and keep them down throughout that, I respect that.
Yeah, the Bears had multiple chances to steal the game and they weren't able to, which is a testament to organizational competency.
That is the only two juggernauts that I feel like succeeded this week. Everyone else has failed. So
yes. Who did we already mention?
Right.
We already mentioned the Cowboys,
the
kind of getting
Cowboys.
punched in the mouth.
Yes.
Detroit kind of just like sleepwalking through that game.
All right, so 49ers absolutely rinsed by the Minnesota Vikings. Like
Right.
straight up.
The score looks closer than the actual game was,
Yes.
to be perfectly honest with y'all.
The score was 23-17, obviously in favor of the Vikings. But watching the game, it felt like the Vikings very clearly lightened up for a little bit towards the end.
Like, right.
Sam Darnold went 17 for 26 for 268 yards. Justin Jefferson, 4 receptions, 133 yards. An insane
97-yard touchdown, which was one of the highlights of the year already.
Yes. Top tier. A lot of runs, and it was systematic. The 49ers did not look together. I don't know what it was, but they just did not look together.
Right. It really was. And, like, again, Brian Flores, there's been a lot of discussion about him and his relationship with the Dolphins after getting fired. But, like, man, I'm going to just say he's an elite defensive coach because, again, they are not necessarily the most talented defense on the Vikings, but they're the hardest working. Yes. Between all of the weird blitz packages they were throwing at him, all the weird coverages, it was one of those moments where the Brock Purdy non-believers, like, it's a feather in our cap to be like, see, this is what we're talking about. A lot of pressure, took a lot of sacks, was inconsistent. Honestly, one of the only reasons the game was, they just were off rhythm all day, the 49ers. Like, the only times they were really able to succeed were off of failures by the Vikings, honestly. Yeah. Their 2 touchdowns came off a moderately bad interception from Darnold. It was a bit of a forced pass, but it did take in a pretty great play from the linebacker. But you also have to remember the 49ers are known for having good linebackers and a fumble. Honestly, like, one of the reasons why I'm not wholly in on the Vikings yet is just because, like, those little moments of Sam Darnold were creeping their head in of, like, where he just kind of turns his brain off and is like, I'm going to do something risky and stupid. Yeah. But then at the end of the game, when the chips are down, he's like, I'm going to throw a 20-yard strike and ice the game.
It's literally just in the back of his head of just, I'm still Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Oh, right. God, that's such a funny way of putting it. Anytime he gets momentum, his brain goes, what the fuck? What are you doing? You're Sam Darnold. And he goes, oh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I am Sam Darnold. Anyway.
Just walks off the field with the sad Peanuts music.
Yeah. Another juggernaut that continues to fall. The Ravens.
Yeah, again, we're talking about 0-2 teams and 2-0 teams, but like I'm actually starting to worry about the Ravens.
That is so concerning.
Right? Like, yes, because they had this game done. They had the Raiders dead to rights. Yes. The Raiders needed to score 13 points in the fourth quarter to take the lead. They had a double-digit lead going into the fourth quarter. They were up by 10 after Derrick Henry scores a touchdown. And theoretically, that is the place you've built this team for. Like, we can just power run the ball now between Lamar and Derrick Henry. And you just couldn't because your offensive line is inexplicably tissue paper thin now. Yeah. Like, the entire right side looked irredeemable. Mason Crosby had, or Max Crosby. God damn, I always do that. Max Crosby. I really don't know why I do that. Because I like kickers. He was drafted very early, and I'm like, that's cool. I like kickers. But yeah, Max Crosby had a field day, and it's just becoming painfully apparent of like the vision you wanted for this Ravens offense. The spread passing game you developed last year with power running isn't going to be possible with this offensive line playing like this. And also, anytime they go, because between this and Chris Jones, anytime they go up against an elite pass rusher, or like elite linemen, they just seem completely bamboozled. And that wouldn't be a problem, except, oh, wait, you're in the AFC North. Literally all the other 3 teams you play against have one of those guys.
Yes.
And you play them 6 times this year.
Yes. And it's
like, oh no!
Like, they're lost in week 1 to the Chiefs. That can be considered a fluke. This was not a fluke. This is second.
Right. This was a team this team just kind of beat you at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Like, out-toughed you.
Yeah. Another juggernaut that's fallen, in my opinion, Kansas City Chiefs. They should not have won.
Yeah, look, I know by the letter of the law that was technically a penalty, and people are just jumpy because it's the Chiefs. But like, come, again, it's like
very soft.
Right? It's like, how come the rule of let the players play never seems to apply to the Chiefs, but it does to most of the other teams?
Yeah. It was
like, I'm sorry. Again, I know smart football people are insisting it was an accurate call, but like, I don't agree with it.
Yeah, but it was a very soft call in my opinion, where it's just like, ooh, you really like, you're not wrong, but you are like, you're stretching.
Right.
If this was if you were going for a touchdown, like, your toe is on that line of the Ravens game. Like, that's how close it was, in my opinion, to being like just barely avoiding pass interference.
And on top of that, one of your only 3 touchdowns was a very questionable fumble recovery return for a touchdown. Honestly, in general, the Chiefs did not look good in this game. Isaiah Pacheco looked fine, but now he's broken his leg, so he's out for the year. You have no running game. Travis Kelce, it seems like you're just doing we'll put him on ice and hopefully be ready for the playoffs. Yeah. I don't know what it is about the Bengals that just causes Patrick Mahomes' head to short circuit, but he threw 2 really bad interceptions. I will credit one Bengals cornerback who was trash talking Xavier Worthy throughout the week, where he's like, "Oh, he's just little. Just shove him. It'll be fine."
Yeah.
What is it? I believe Cam Tyler-Britt does a one-handed interception while airborne. So credit to you for shit talking and actually delivering. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. It's a very concerning game for the Chiefs. Where I'm like, I know we do this every year, where it's like, oh, they look vulnerable, and then they win anyway. But like, I also give credit to the Bengals, who I was really down and out on last week. They looked efficient. In terms
solid.
Of right, and it's like they looked adaptable, which has always been a problem for this team. While the vibes are really bad with Jamar Chase right now, because he's basically like, man, it's just whatever. I'm not gonna negotiate a contract anymore. We're just gonna see what happens. They were like, all right, well, the Kansas City Chiefs can't cover tight ends, so I guess that's just what we're doing today. A slightly reassuring game from them. And like, again, no one, I believe, the Steelers are the only undefeated team in the AFC North, and their wins are a grand total. They've scored a single touchdown this year.
Yeah.
So I'm not like overly concerned.
No, that was a very competitive division last year. Very competitive.
Yes.
I think that's gonna, that has the ability to completely flip around. Granted, everyone does at this early, but I feel like that one is clearly the one that's these standings are not going to stay the same in 5 weeks from now.
Oh yes, there's going to be multiple lead changes here. Mm-hmm. And yeah, but yeah, in general, a lot of obviously this team is going to wins, getting completely pantsed.
And then also with the Bengals, they looked real good, and now they have the Commanders and Panthers as their next 2 games. Just saying.
Yeah, they're going to have a chance to right the ship here. Should we consider the Eagles? Do you want just 2 minutes?
The Eagles as a fall of a juggernaut. I don't need 2 minutes. I don't need a long time, because they clearly fell apart at the end. It was clear as day.
It's the same song and dance we've seen a couple times now.
There was instead of going for a field goal to get some guaranteed points, they went for a touchdown and blew it. And then the last drive,
they did the opposite.
They were ahead. They could have just kept wasting the clock and doing bullshit runs to just kill all the time. Short little passes to blow it. And then Saquon had a very bad miss. That was in his hands. I can't be mad at Jalen Hurts for that one. It was pretty much in Saquon's hands, and he was just like, I'm a former Giant.
I do love all of Giants Twitter is just doing victory laps of this is why we got rid of him. This is why, and I'm like, I need the Giants to play a real NFL defense so we can end the silliness.
They're also 0-2.
Yes,
but and then the last drive of the game by the Falcons, the Eagles had no defense. It took them 12 seconds to get all the way down, and they just blew it.
It really is funny. We're on defensive coordinator, number 4 now in the last couple, basically since the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
and it's the same defense every time. Like, again, someone described it well as Howie Roseman wants this to be a baseball team. He wants it to be like modern baseball teams with analytics, where basically the GM decides everything, and the manager is more there for rah-rah points, just to like rally troops, not make too many decisions. And like the worst example of that is they've decided this bend don't break defense is going to be it, and it's like, well, there's one little problem. Y'all fucking suck at tackling, and also you have no pass rush. The Brian Huff contract, or the Huff contract, looks rough right now.
Real bad right now.
Maybe he'll turn it around, but something about seeing him get absolutely run over by Bijan Robinson on a chip block was a bit of a red flag.
And then, who was it? Oh God, Mooney? Is that the guy I'm thinking of?
Mm-hmm.
Where he kind of just ran at C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and then just it was Mooney, and just kind of pushed him off. And C.J. Gardner-Johnson just was like, oh no.
Right. I genuinely was bewildered by that play. I'm like, how do you let go of a man like that?
Like, you're supposed to be this, like, quality safety, and you do that shit? What the fuck?
Like, I can't even fully muster up the, like, oh, this guy's falling for the Eagles. Because it's like, again, the offense looked good. We had the characteristic Jalen Hurts crunch time. Let me force it even though we have time, which he's done, like, 3 times now. But, like, Saquon looked good other than the drop. They shouldn't have called that play.
But when he got that fucking 2-point conversion run by just dipping his hand with the ball in it into the end zone, that was like a veteran football player move.
Right. Like, the offense was a little more vanilla than I'd like to see. But again, it's like, the biggest thing for me is I appreciate that they finally realized that Jalen Hurts isn't actually that good at running the read option. He's much better when it's either just a handoff or just power quarterback run.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's like a wishbone thing. I think he's much better at that, and they leaned into that. He looked much better on the ground than he has in previous months. And, like, yeah, again, these problems we've had on the defense are the same ones we had last year, but we haven't changed the system at all. Like, I'd rather lose by 20 blitzing all the time if we're not going to get a pass rush than just getting stabbed to death by Kirk Cousins, who can't move right. But, like, yeah, I don't know. I thought I would have more, like, robust rage for the Eagles. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's the same stuff we said last. Just go to one of our old episodes.
Yeah. That's why I'm not...
We're not your moms.
That's why I'm not, like, ready. Like, I don't need to go off. The second half of the season, or not even the second half, the last month of the season there last year is pretty much all my same complaints.
Right.
I will say it was a very cool moment. The one I watched where Bijan tried to split in between, I think it was like Jordan Davis and Milton Williams, and they both just put one hand on him and just pushed him down for like while blocking the offensive lineman, just pushed him down for like a yard or two back. That was pretty cool.
Right.
Like
there's
these
moments
glimpses of hope. There's glimpses of hope, but there's not the ability to finish.
Right. It's the glimpses of hope that come from watching a lot of these guys play at Georgia, but then it's like, well, why aren't they consistent? It's like, well, they didn't play a lot at Georgia.
No.
Like, again, there's just one problem, Howie. All of these guys played like 2 quarters because they were either up by 50 or they had a big rotation.
Yeah.
But, we're kind of on a tight clock here, so they kind of had to learn how to be NFL players.
I will say, though, with over the last, like, couple of seasons, they're all looking like they were worth it draft picks.
Yeah,
like,
I suppose
just because
so.
the team isn't doing amazing, I feel like with them isn't like great, and they all need a lot of learning, but they don't look like terrible draft picks.
Yes.
The Young era ends young.
Yes. So Bryce Young, basically, what is he even on? His 17th start, 18th start? 18th. After a really bad 26-3 loss to the Chargers, is being benched in favor of Andy Dalton, who I genuinely didn't think was still in the league.
Yeah.
But yes. Well, let me just say, in terms of just like choices, this very much reads as I am trying to save my job move by Coach Dave Canales. He was brought in to be a quarterback guru for Bryce Young. Immediately identified, oh, that's not going to happen. And he's he clearly had the mercenary logic of, well, if I bench him, I probably will still be a one-and-done coach. Mm-hmm. But if I don't, there's absolutely no doubt about it. Because Andy Dalton, for all of his faults, is tall and has run an NFL offense before. Like, I don't know. Again, because there's no signs that Bryce Young is a bad person or a bad dude or even a bad teammate. No. But just like...
He had the unfortunate position of being put on the Carolina Panthers with not much to work around.
Right. But even then, like, people are talking about trades to theoretically save his career, and they're like, oh, mix him up with Brian Daboll. That could work. You know, he's an offensive, like, savant. He'll figure out something to do with Bryce Young. And I'm like, Brian Daboll only succeeds with running quarterbacks. Bryce Young cannot run. No, and then some former quarterback Chase Daniel, who I remember for being, like, 4th in the Heisman one year, pitched an absolutely butt-fuck-nuts 3-team trade that would somehow send Matthew Stafford to the Panthers. And... Or no. I think he found the 3rd team, so Matthew Stafford didn't have to go to the Panthers. But I think God, where did he end up going? But the point is, Bryce Young ends up going to the Rams because their year feels like it might be close to giving up on the year. And I'm like, yeah, genius, everyone. Just trade one of the best quarterbacks who's ever played the game for one of the worst. Duh! Of course! But, like... And I started going through draft profiles of Bryce Young to just get a sense of, like, were we really all on this? And everyone just keeps referencing Drew Brees, Kyler Murray. And I think there's going to be a lot of lessons you can take away from this. Don't sell the farm for one draft pick. Be patient. If they had waited one more year, they would have been able to draft Caleb Williams. Figure out a way to work around manic owners. But I think the biggest thing is just going to be, like, you have to have an A-plus physical trait. Yes. Kyler Murray is small, but he's one of the most explosive athletes on the field every time he's on the field. Yes, Russell Wilson was small, but he was stout, quick, and he had an absolute moonbeam of an arm that could send the ball sailing through the air.
And a top-tier
catchphrase. Yes, and a top-tier sense of personality. All of the wit and charm of a cool Christian Bible teacher. Yes, Drew Brees was small, but he had an almost supernatural ability to read the field and move laterally in the pocket. When you look at Bryce Young, you're just like, what did he have? Was it just because he was on Alabama and they were good?
I think what actually happened was, there was, besides the Alabama was good, is right before the draft, everyone kind of panicked on if CJ Stroud was the guy to be number 1. Like, I think there was a lot of overthinking and over-consideration, and that's why they went with Bryce Young when they actually wanted C.J. Stroud, but somebody got spooked, and that's what happened.
Well, again, a lot of talk was Dave Tepper, the owner, was really gung-ho because he's like, man, just look at this guy in, like, these meetings. He runs it like, he talks like a businessman. Oh, and look at his, like, statistics scores. And it's like, okay, but C.J. Stroud is tall and he throws the ball good. Those are kind of the first two things. Oh, yes. Okay. No, the 3rd team was the Dolphins. The Dolphins get Matthew Stafford. The Dolphins get Matthew Stafford, which I'm like, okay, I would hate that for me personally, but I actually kind of like to see, they're basically like, oh, the Rams don't have wide receivers now because everyone's hurt. Put them on a team with wide receivers. But again, it's like, yes, just trade one of the most elite arms we've ever seen in the game to a good team and trade this awful quarterback to a different team. Bingo, bongo. Chase Daniels, you're actually a pretty good commentator, but this is some jabroni shit, man. Come on.
That's silly.
But yeah, I feel bad, and I'll feel even worse if the Panthers are slightly more competent in the next couple weeks. Because it's like, I don't know. Again, we talked about the nature versus nurture thing, and it's like, was Bryce Young objectively screwed over by a terrible situation? Yes. Was he not given enough time to develop? Yes. But also, like, was there ever a scenario where he was going to be a top-tier quarterback? And I just look at it and I'm like, I don't think so. I just think we talked ourselves into it because he was a good leader. He gutted it out on kind of a mediocre Alabama team that last year. Mm-hmm. And, like, you know, again, the Alabama prestige. Yeah. Where it's like, you can look at Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, and C.J. Stroud, and you just see enough where you can talk yourself into, like, maybe this guy could be elite. Maybe this guy has just enough traits that we can push him over the top. Whereas I don't see that with Bryce Young, and I do think that's going to be a big lesson of like it's better to roll the dice on elite physical traits than play it safe with the good sort of intangibles guy.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it. I don't know. I hope he gets another opportunity at least, if nothing else, to be like a backup or at least like I don't know, get a little bit of a opportunity. Although on the other end of the
Will Levis
the other end
again derogatory.
Yes. So if you've seen one meme from this football season, it is after throwing a panic interception as he's being tackled, chucking a ball, like getting on his hands and knees and going, ah! He somehow had another meme like that. As he is airborne because he was tripped, he tries to fling the ball backwards. And you know it's bad when the colorful commentator can't help but make a comment during the play. And he just goes, no, Will, that's a backwards pass. And of course, the guy bumbles it. And the Jets get it. A game where, if I'm being real, the Titans kind of were beating up on the Jets. It was a close game, but it really did feel like, what is going on here? Are the Jets really going to lose this game? And it is wild that we've had 2 Titans games now where if Will Levis could have just not reached that deep eldritch part of his brain that goes, it's time to get silly. They probably just win. And I will say, in terms of the 0-2 teams, they're the one I feel weirdly the best about because they at least look baseline competent. The lesson from this year is probably going to be that Will Levis isn't the guy, but that's okay because you'll have enough losses to go get a new guy. But like, it is also very funny that the Titans head coach cannot hide his kind of contempt right now. Brian Callahan, first-time head coach. I believe his line last week was, if we just punted the ball on first down, we win that game. And I forget what he said something this week that was very, very similar. And it's like, on one hand, maybe this is just some tough love. Maybe you're just trying to rally this guy. On the other hand, it really does feel like well, I want to be able to pick my guy next time, so I'm going to throw Will under the bus. Should we do the Tua talk real quick?
I think all I have to say is, how is Tua A still alive, and B, the fact that the team, at least the notification I saw said the team is going to have him go to an outside specialist.
Yeah,
If an athlete of any kind is going to an outside specialist of their own free will, it's like, all right, they're more concerned than the team is about something. Let them do it, whatever. And like, we'll worry about it. Like, things aren't being taken seriously, especially with like those more individual things. But when you are being, at least from the way I read it, when you are being sent by your team to an outside specialist, that means you're being dumb.
I just and I empathize because this is his life and he wants to earn that contract. And I'm really glad he signed that we all threw up our hands when he got that contract, but now I'm really glad he got it.
But it's like,
and I hope he takes whatever legal recourse he has to make sure he gets as much of that money as possible.
Yeah, I can respect that. And if they want to just eat a fuck ton of money to make sure Tua is okay, eat a fuck ton of money to make sure Tua is okay. Like, you guys are the ones that made him go get his brain scrambled.
Right. At the end because everyone's talking about like, oh, Mike McDaniel was so kind, like he kissed him on the forehead, he was so nice. And I'm like, at the end of the day, everyone in that organization, everyone knew what they were doing when they sent him out on that Thursday night game after he got his first concussion. They knew the risks. They did it anyway. And like, if that doesn't happen, maybe this is a different story. Maybe he doesn't keep getting them if he didn't have 2 in basically 4 days. And I don't know. And I'll make this quick because we don't want to loom on the absolute bummerest of bummers for too long. But like, the 2 sports we talk about here, you and me, are wrestling and football. And like, I feel like neither of us are under any delusion that you have to compartmentalize a lot of stuff. You have to accept that you are kind of watching blood sports. Even in the case of wrestling, which, they fake some stuff, but a lot of it's real. A lot of it hurts.
It is scripted. They do their best to prevent injuries, but that's not always the case.
Right. Like, again, there was a reason why in the 1920s they tried to legislate football out of existence and compared it to like bull baiting. It's like these are terribly violent, scary sports that you kind of have to talk yourself into being okay with, because at the end of the day, the people who are playing it of their own free will.
Yes.
But at the same time, at some point, a line has to be drawn and a person has to be protected from himself. Because I get it, Tua. I know you don't want to spend the rest of your life being the concussion guy. You don't want to be remembered as the guy who had to retire because he had too many concussions. But you know what was really scary? The fact that was the most normal hit. People are calling it a vicious hit. Damar Hamlin barely touched. Damar Hamlin was literally moving. It was like a catcher trying to get in front of a player so he could tag him out.
Damar Hamlin looked like he was just standing there, like going for a normal tackle. Tua went headfirst into his arm. Also,
right.
The fucking wildest commentary spot of, I forget who said it, but it was just like, oh, isn't it ironic that it involves Tua and Damar Hamlin like this situation? It's like, holy
ghouls.
shit. Like, I thought I had less to say. Apparently I don't. But,
yeah, how the NFL handled it was very gross, let's be honest.
That's one of those things, like, you say it with your friends, you get a couple of chuckles, and but no one says it. Like, anything of, like, how, like, it's like, oh, wow, that was kind of bad, but you're not wrong. But to say it to millions of people without...
To make it like a punchline.
Yeah.
Like, a guy might be in actual severe pain, and you're making it a punchline.
Like, that level of commentary, insanity. What a fucking statement.
Yeah, and I guess, like, on that note, sort of the ghoulishness of the whole thing, again, I get that you don't want to be the concussion guy, but you know who also didn't want to be the concussion guy? Junior Seau, who became the guy who shot himself in the chest because he knew he needed to preserve his brain so that doctors could figure out what went wrong. And I'm just like, please, man, just think carefully about this.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have that much to prove. I get it. Life has given you a lot of bad hands between your hip and your head, but, like, you can still get out of this relatively okay.
He's good enough that he can easily get a commentary job, a coaching gig, something like that, where he does not have to leave the sport. He might have to leave the field. He does not have to leave the sport.
It's not how you imagined it, but it's, how many people truly get to live the life they fully imagined. Shall we move on to notes?
Oh, yeah.
Let's lighten the mood by dunking on Danny.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Danny.
Don't be a Danny draft pick. Danny's first draft
This season
pick,
sucked for injuries.
Yeah. Danny's first draft pick, number 1 pick overall, Christian McCaffrey, injury reserve. Danny's second draft pick, Puka Nacua, injury reserve. His third draft pick, Isaiah Pacheco, injury reserve. His fourth draft pick is Devontae Smith, and as an Eagles fan, I am fucking nervous.
Yes. Justin Herbert's been having problems. Jordan Love obviously got hurt. Cooper Kupp is probably on the injury reserve. Debo's probably on the injury reserve. There's probably like 3 or 4 I'm forgetting. A.J. Brown, they just announced an injury out of nowhere, and it was so perfectly timed because so very obviously people were mad about the Christian McCaffrey thing not getting announced early enough. Yeah. So they were like, let's not start drama. This has been a truly bad year. Like, I'm genuinely like, can we just sit down and have a talk? Maybe we just pause the season for like 2 or 3 weeks to let everyone breathe.
Yeah.
I was because I was like thinking of ways the Rams could get out of this and like save their season. And genuinely, all I ended up coming up with is they deliberately spread bird flu to enough cities that the government has to say, no, you can't play football anymore. That's our best way out of this, baby. The Omega pandemic. Mm-hmm. But yes, tough year for injuries. And like, I mean, I know it's like high profile guys, so it's tougher. But at the same time, it's like, no, it is what it's always been with the NFL of like, the teams that get as far as they do because they're healthy. Mm-hmm. Like last year, I believe every single starter from week 1 played in the Super Bowl. The Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl, I believe there was 1 starter missing. Like, it was a very good track record for India. Yeah. If to make it to the Final Four, you have to be healthy. And that's kind of always the number one thing.
Yeah, agreed.
My little note is we had our first announcement about the preliminary they have to narrow it down.
Yes.
But they have basically throughout the year, they get the list of guys who they think will go to the Hall of Fame and then narrow it down. So we have a lot of first-time candidates. The obvious headline is Eli Manning, two-time Super Bowl winner.
Yep.
But we also have Travis Frederick, Ryan Khalil, Joe Staley, running back Marshawn Lynch, Darren Sproles, the late Demarius Thomas, Vernon Davis, Delaney Walker, Antonio Betha, Aqib Talib, Earl Thomas of the Legion of Boom, and other players who are back into consideration who were finalists previously: Antonio Gates, Torrey Holt, Reggie Wayne, Willie Anderson, Jahir Evans, Darren Woodson, Eric Allen, Rodney Harrison, Jared Allen, Fred Taylor is a fun one.
Yeah.
And yeah, this could be a very fun class. I hope Marshawn Lynch gets in.
He's
his
someone that's done good enough. I feel like there's some
right.
Like, I'm looking at the list right now, and there's some names here that I'm surprised are not already Hall of Famers.
Right. I'm shocked Torrey Holt isn't.
Yeah. Like Randall Cunningham, I feel like I'm pretty surprised he's not a Hall of Famer at this point.
But I really do think it's just not enough playoff success, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a factor. But
I'm always a guy who argues guys should get in based on, like, cultural significance. And I'm like, Randall Cunningham was, like, one of the first runny guys. You got to acknowledge that.
Yeah, there's got to be a little bit more.
He's in backyard football, for God.
Oh, yeah, he is. I always used him. But who did I see? I just saw somebody that I was super surprised that was not on it. All right, whatever. But yeah, no, like when you mentioned Reggie Wayne and stuff, it's just like, how the hell Reggie Wayne, Marshawn Lynch, like,
yeah,
these are guys that I'm getting more and more surprised with than that. I think Eli's a guaranteed. With all the stuff he's doing with Monday Night Football and stuff, he's definitely a guarantee.
Oh, yeah. Look, you can say that he had a lot of, like, down years. You can say, like, he had some flaws in his career. But at the end of the day, he's one of only two men to ever beat Tom Brady in a Super Bowl, and he did it twice.
Yeah. In the kicker category, David Akers definitely deserves it. Adam Vinatieri definitely deserves it.
Oh, he's getting in.
Pat McAfee is on this list, and that is hilarious to me. I hope...
Oh, my God. Well, is that why he's doing all this stuff?
I don't know, and I kind of hope he just makes it in, because he would give one of the silliest Hall of Fame speeches on the planet. And he would...
Oh, he'll be hungover as shit when he does that.
He would ride that horse like an Old Town Road. But it would be hilarious. But yeah, no, I'm excited to see when they narrow it down more who's gonna get, like... I hope there's some people that make it over others, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to when the list starts getting narrowed down to pinpoint who I'm really excited for.
Yeah. The question of the week. I believe this was your question, Carter.
Yes. Now that we've had 2 full games, which 2-0 teams do you most believe in, and which ones do you believe the least in?
All right. I have my answers. I believe in the Houston football CJ Strouds.
Yes, that's a good answer, I believe.
They're looking pretty. They're fighting strong. The one I believe in the least is the Chargers.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I do feel like the sort of football they play could get found out very quickly.
Yeah, that, and their first 2 games were the Raiders, who, not an amazing team, but like put up a good fight, and the Panthers.
Yes.
I feel like that's not saying much. Now this
again. I love that everyone's like sort of advanced analytics lists that show like all the teams based on run success and pass success are like, well, if you remove the Saints and the Chargers who played the Panthers, let's see who's number 1.
Yeah. But then there's their next 2-3 weeks, or actually their next like pretty much the rest of the season is going to be a lot more interesting. Their next 2 teams are the Steelers and the Chiefs. So I feel like this is when you can prove yourself.
Right. If they even go 1-1 in those, I'll be like, okay, they could actually make playoffs this year.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they have like things like the Cardinals. I wouldn't sleep on the Broncos as a division rival.
Mm-hmm.
The Falcon. Who knows about the Falcons? But like the Saints, like, which is a terrifying team this year.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot A lot of options. Bless you back there.
Yes.
The dog sneezed very snottily. It was gross.
Yes. So in terms of teams, the team I believe in the most, you know what? I'm going to say the Seahawks. If only because as I look at their division and I see kind of the strains on the 49ers, and I see the Cardinals being feisty, but with still some weaknesses, and the Rams basically their tires falling off. I think their path to get to the playoffs, especially compared to like the Vikings, the Saints, the Chargers, the Steelers, I think is a lot clearer.
I agree, but I disagree. I feel like they have a harder strength of schedule remaining.
True. I guess that's can they at least go 50-50 in like the serious competitive games? That's my question.
Yes.
And that's one that will get told out later. The 2-0 team I believe in the least, I want to say the Vikings, but I'm willing to give Sam Darnold more of a leash. Probably Pittsburgh, only because I don't know how, like, again, their defense is great, but it's very star heavy. If pieces start falling off, I don't know how much they can hold it together. And they've also been able to play it very safe with Fields so far. I don't know, like, if he's asked to be something he statistically has not his entire career, how's that going to work?
Yeah, the Steelers have scored a whopping total of, I believe, let me do the math real quick, 31 points.
Yes. Which is the lowest of all the 2-0 teams.
Yes, and for context, the Saints haven't even scored that low in a game yet.
Right, they have 91. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I was gonna be a homer and say the Bills, but like, I don't know. They feel like one injury away from the thing kind of starting to capsize a little bit. And we've done this with the Bills before. I'm not falling for it until it's locked in.
Yeah, no, that's smart. Bills' strength of schedule is relatively solid. I wouldn't say it's good,
yes,
but it's not like they have a very big crapshoot of teams where their teams they're playing are allegedly really good or allegedly really bad.
Yes, and we'll talk about the next week in a second, but this Jaguars game is a big test because the Jaguars are famously the season ruiners. Last year, they went to London to play the Jaguars off a week of rest, and not only got embarrassed, but also lost the entire spine of their defense because Matt Milano broke his leg and Roquan Smith tore his pec. The Jags have always had their number, and I do love, like I said, with we never have to play in Miami in the heat again. They gave us a mini bye because it's Thursday to Monday, so we got a half week. That really feels like sorry about last year. It turns out we shouldn't have teams stay in London for 2 weeks. It gives them an unfair advantage.
Now we're learning this. Although,
yeah,
I think
if they actually
Trevor
win this
Lawrence
game, I believe.
To buy a house out there.
Oh God, I mean, I was about to say, does he fit in? I don't know. I haven't been to London in quite a long time.
I wouldn't say he fits in, but I think he's gonna just be on it there.
Shall we move on to next week?
Yeah, let's.
All right.
This sounded so much cooler in my head. TNF, more like TAFC East. It would have worked also so much better with the NFC East, or like an NFC team.
Yeah, you're trying. Yes, the Patriots played the Jets.
Yes, last week it was Bills Dolphins. This week it's Patriots Jets. We're just covering the entire AFC East.
Right.
But God
big market.
Damn,
they are kind of one of the bigger markets
in this game.
Yeah, I just and I've kind of enjoyed how scrappy the Patriots are. I cannot stand watching this Aaron Rodgers Jets team. Now that we've seen it for 2 weeks, I'm like, this is so goddamn boring.
And
they just have, it's just so vanilla. They have no creativity in play calling, and it's either a deep throw to the sideline, a slant, or like an emergency screen pass.
Yeah. Like, there's also the factor of like looking at the rest of the schedule. Like, I don't know what game I would put in its spot. Rams 49ers, but that's Lions Cardinals. Damn.
It looked better than before. It looked better before.
Yeah, it's like I guess this is kind of going to go into the next point too of like big games of the week, where last week I said biggest game is going to be that means the most is Bills Dolphins. In quality of the game, I'm wrong. In the concept of it means a lot, I'm right. Like it's scrambled to his brain again. but it wasn't a bad game, but it wasn't like a like football. Like it was just like, all right.
It was a competitive game for about half a quarter, and then the Dolphins kind of just got pushed around.
Yeah, the Bills laughed at the Dolphins, but kind of going into this week, I don't want to classify any of these as like the big game of the week. I don't think there is one.
Right? It is a very odd week. Saints Eagles will be like a bar setter for both of them. Yeah. Rams 49ers seemed better before. Cardinals Lions is at least a little feisty. For some ungodly reason, we have 2 Monday night games this week.
Yeah. 2 Monday night games where it's like Bills Jaguars could be interesting. Commanders Bengals. Yeah. I feel like there's a reason that is not a solo Monday night game and is a part of a 2-part Monday night games.
Mm.
But there's not like any games that scream out like, yes, like this is gonna mean a lot. 49ers Rams has the most like divisional issues outside of Patriots Jets. I don't even think there's a single other interdivision game. No.
Yeah. Should we skip ahead to our don't sleep on games then for our personal interests?
Yeah, we can.
Yes. So mine is Steelers Chargers for, like, again, I'm a man of contradiction. I want high flying offense. I want air raid. I want guys slinging it 70 yards down the field. But when teams do fun stuff with their running game, when teams are scheming up just the nastiest shit to like bully the other team, I'm all in. I'm sending a photo over Discord. This is a formation the San Diego Football Chargers, LA Football Chargers ran. So it is on the right side. It is center, and then on the right side, guard, tight end, fullback, slightly off the line, and on the left side, it's guard, tackle, tight end, slightly off the line. Herbert is in a pistol formation with Dobbins in the back. That is just nasty. That is devious. That is nonsense.
That is an absurd lineup.
Right? That is a bunch of men slapping me together. And as I mentioned before, the tackle combination of Rashad Slater and Joe Alt-Delete have only allowed up 2 pressures this entire season so far. And this is going to be their biggest test. They were able to keep Max Crosby in check, but TJ Watt, who has been on an absolute bender to start this season, will be their biggest test yet. And
I'm putting it on the screen now. I put on the formation right now, like in episode editing.
Jesus. But yes, that is... Look at this. Look at this. It's nuts. Like, the Panthers are just in a regular formation. Like, we don't have the... Like, again, the teams that are succeeding now are the ones who are zagging to power running games. Not the Dolphins with their speed, but, like, it's like, oh, you're going to have 8 defensive backs out there and 3... you're not even going to have a dedicated linebacker. Well, what are you going to do about this?
Yeah.
But yes, if they somehow manage to at least keep this game competitive and keep TJ Watt in check, then I'm sorry, Joe better be getting Rookie of the Year, folks.
Yeah.
So that's my game.
Sorry, that distracted me so much. I have to completely rearrange just so I can see what I said.
The macho-ness of it all.
Such a fucking startling thing. Oh, I'm so unhappy with what I chose, but I feel like I made a solid pick. So my pick is at a 4:25 time slot. The Ravens and the Cowboys.
Yes.
Oh, God, I hate picking the Cowboys for things. I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of acknowledging their kicker and occasionally Micah Parsons, I don't like to acknowledge them in the slightest, unless if it's in a negative connotation. But them being at a 4 o'clock time slot, when they made the schedule, seemed like it was going to be criminal. And that should be one of the, Thursday night, Sunday night, big moment games.
Mm-hmm.
But with how the 0-2 Ravens versus the 1-1 Cowboys coming off of a rough loss in week 3 as part of my bingo card would never existed.
Right.
And I feel like this is going to be this could be either a 1-2 Cowboys or an 0-3 Ravens coming from this. This is like, this could be cementing playoff hopes into the grave.
Right. It's really hard to imagine an 0-3 Ravens. And on paper, again, the Dallas defense is kind of paper thin. But on the other hand, again, they have struggled to block star defensive linemen. Micah Parsons is going to be licking his chops for the rest of the week, knowing that if all goes according to plan, he is going to eat.
Yeah, and this could also, like, this has so many possibilities. And it's also like week 4. The Cowboys play Thursday night against, sure, it's against the Giants. But if you get beaten down enough, even the Giants stand a chance. And then the Ravens play Sunday Night Football against the Bills, where it's like, if the Ravens lose that, you're going 0-3 against a pretty solid Bills. You might get laughed at and have a winless September.
Yeah, I can't believe.
So, like,
I can't believe it'll go down like this.
This went from a game, like, preseason. This was a game of two possible juggernauts, arguably conference leaders, to who the fuck is going to put the nail in the coffin for the other one. It's not going to be the final nail, but it is going to be a nail in that coffin. So, we shall see. But that's more for later this week / next week. Send us home,
yes. Carter. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for another week of Carter and Kevin Talk Football. We are heading deeper and deeper into autumn, ladies and gentlemen. We are getting into that crispy apple cider season. And as we do, and as the steam rises off of that delicious hot cocoa and covers our glasses, we'll be able to see, paradoxically, we will get to see where these teams are going and who will rise and who will fall. But until then, enjoy another week of football.